Saudi Arabia has just unveiled plans for the biggest and most absurd mega project ever. The Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman wants to build two 500-meter-tall parallel skyscrapers stretching 170 kilometers across mountains and desert terrain. The project is called the Mirror Line, and turning this into reality would be like building 2,001 World Trade Centers next to each other twice. Since only 12 skyscrapers in the world have crossed the 500-meter height barrier so far, building 4,000 of these at the same time and at the same place sounds like a ridiculous idea. So, why has Saudi Arabia announced something so insane? Can they really make it happen, or are they just trying to gain worldwide attention? Few countries in the world can claim to have a transformation plan as ambitious as Saudi Arabia. In 2016, the kingdom announced Vision 2030, a diversification plan that would reduce the country's dependence on oil and shift the economy towards tourism, technology, and other sectors. Since then, a master plan known as Neom, which stands for New Future, has been made public. 3 enormous mega projects make up the future smart metropolis known as Neom. The Octagon, a floating 8-sided industrial complex, is the initial phase of the project and would act as a terminal for ships traveling across the Red Sea. The city will also boast Trojeno, a popular outdoor skiing resort in the Arabian Peninsula, where entertainment and activities are expected to take place all year round. The Mirror Line, which was initially known in January 2021, is more lavish than any of these proposals, though. It's insane to put it mildly, and more information about this proverbial line has lately come to light. And what exactly is the Mirror Line? The structure will consist of 2 skyscrapers that are 500 meters tall, will be parallel to one another for 170 kilometers over arid landscape. With only 200 meters between them, these parallel buildings will feature mirror image exteriors and can accommodate a 9 million person city. The city will be linear, beginning at the Red Sea Gulf of Aqaba coast and extending inland through mountainous and arid terrain. Walkways will be used to connect the 2 mirrored facades. The majority of the interior space will be vertically constructed and stacked with offices, homes, and public parks. In essence, their plan is to stack a typical city's infrastructure vertically on top of one another. In addition, their plan calls for using the most cutting-edge technology and sustainability practices. The 500-meter high walls will incorporate vertical farming to feed the residents. A sports stadium with a 305-meter height above the ground is also planned for the structure, in addition to a marina for yachts. But it is feasible to construct it, and if not now, when? The Mirror Line has been described as a revolution in civilization by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, but it more closely resembles a vast wonderland that has jumped off the pages of a novel. Saudi Arabia plans to construct portions of it by 2030 and relocate it over 1 million residents. Despite the fact that mankind has constructed enormous buildings in some of the most challenging environments, the Mirror Line promises too much in too little time. Saudi Arabia's recent track record in the construction of remarkable buildings is also poor. For instance, the Jeddah Tower, which was intended to be the highest skyscraper in the world, has only reached around 1/3 of its initial height. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia is home to the world's 4th tallest tower. The Mirror Line is unlike anything else ever constructed. In contrast, it may be likened to the ambitious aspirations of Illinois 60 years ago. The structure was intended to be 1 mile tall, which was absurd at the time. Similar to Illinois, the Mirror Line may only exist on paper, or in the instance, in 3D renderings and promotional movies. This time, though, the entire globe is watching, and about 50 million individuals have already viewed one of their trailers. So why would Saudi Arabia suggest something so unusual, since it's quite unlikely that the promises can be kept? Since Mohammed bin Salman assumed control of the country's affairs, Saudi Arabia has been rebranding itself. As part of this rebranding initiative, projects like the Mirror Line are certain to draw international notice. Saudi Arabia deserves to be viewed as a country that has much more to offer, and they wish to diversify its economy towards tourism. However, the majority of travelers visiting Saudi Arabia are on pilgrimage. With attention-grabbing initiatives such as the Mirror Line, Saudi Arabia seeks to alter its international reputation. The project is especially significant to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who has compared it to some of the largest mega projects in the Middle East and refers to the Mirror Line as My Pyramids. Neom is intended to become Saudi Arabia's own architectural landmark, and unveiling a fantastic project in the midst of its construction will generate excitement. In addition, the website states that Neom is a vision of what a new future might look like. So it also could be seen as a research project for alternative city structures and modern transportation concepts. With the announcement of the Mirror Line, Saudi Arabia has successfully gained international attention. However, most responses haven't been positive. Many questions are left unanswered. They want to build a city with 1,000 sustainable transport system and zero emissions. However, there's no mention of the massive carbon footprint that building something like this will leave behind. According to estimates from Oldfield at the University of New South Wales, building the line would emit close to 2 billion tons of CO2, which is more than 4 years of all CO2 emissions in the UK. The promise of creating a carbon-neutral city doesn't sound too convincing when considering these immense construction emissions. Furthermore, opponents have been quick to bring out Saudi Arabia's record on human rights and are estimating the human cost of Saudi Arabia's intentions. There are various indigenous groups in the region that have lived in cities and villages for centuries. According to foreignpolicy.com, around 20,000 people must make a place for Neom. Additionally, Saudi security agents have been accused of shooting and killing at least one demonstrator against the construction. The country's failure to implement meaningful labor reforms has led to widespread mistreatment of migrant workers, and the authorities have not yet provided a strategy for addressing the problem. A shaky human rights record has become a heated subject and will impede the billion-dollar mega project's fundraising efforts. Planners had intended to attract international investment, but the country remained predominantly domestic. Economic collaborations and boycotts from the Western world are greeted with hostility. Even if they do get the funds, some of the plans for Neom and the Mirror Line are just too complicated to turn into reality. Most commentators believe that the completed designs will look very different from those being advertised on media platforms. Based on what we have seen so far, Saudi Arabia does not possess the kind of expertise to turn most of its recent claims into reality. Even with foreign help, the magnitude of the Mirror Line project is too big to complete in the next few decades. As for the Mirror Line, another important question to be asked is whether people would actually want to live in such a place. For now, we see the Mirror Line as a concept idea for different ways of living. But realistically, the project is massively overscaled and faces many problems, such as the mentioned human rights abuses and the feasibility. It remains an impossible feat for now, and a more realistic approach would be to integrate some of these futuristic plans into Saudi Arabia's already existing cities. What are your opinions about the Mirror Line, then? Could it ever be built, or would it remain science fiction? Anyway, let's continue. Let's now look at some recent advancements in Saudi Arabia's building industry. Construction on Neom City, Saudi Arabia's most ambitious project, has started on the contested mirrored linear megacity known as the Line. In a recent social media video, many excavators can be seen creating a wide linear trench in the northwest huge desert of the Arab nation. The 100-mile-long city's foundations are expected to be built within the trench. The proposed additions of flying taxis and robot cleaners constantly aroused questions. The concept was initially introduced in 2017. Even if economics and architects doubted its feasibility, many people were certain that this utopian fantasy project would never be built. But fast forward to today. The work on the futuristic megacity is now underway. The released drone footage has captured a part of the massive site, showing the initial stages of the construction of the city. The footage shows hundreds of trucks and machines working in the middle of the desert, preparing the site for construction. Extensive excavation work along the entire length of the project is now taking place. According to previously released renderings, the line will be 170 kilometers long, 500 meters high, and 200 meters wide. But if you watch the construction footage closely, the width of the trench that's being dubbed does not seem to match the proposed measurements. The images that were released just a few months ago show large park areas, rivers and waterfalls, sport complexes, residential, and commercial space inside of the massive structure. 200 meters is roughly the size of 2 American football pitches, and the trench as seen in the drone footage is much smaller. The actual size of the line would ideally be 3 times the size of this trench. Therefore, there is reason to believe that this excavation could just be preparatory work for the underground high-speed transport system that is planned to be built underneath the length of the city. The line is arguably the most dramatic project in the world of architecture and construction right now. It has been designed to house 9 million people and will be higher than the Empire State Building, with a gigantic, elegant mirror glass facade. The city will run entirely on renewable energy with the aid of artificial intelligence with no roads, cars, or carbon emissions, making it a fully sustainable city. As of today, the city exists only on a website and a press announcement made by Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Despite the flashy announcement, many design experts believe that the technology for such a city doesn't exist yet. According to proposal, the line is designed as a series of unique communities and will be organized in 3 dimensions of movement, up, down, or across. This is a theory referred to as zero-gravity urbanism. A pedestrian layer at street level with parks and open spaces is one of the 3 tiers, a lower layer of the surface and an underground transportation spine made up of high-speed transit. According to the proposal, all daily services would be accessible on foot within 5 minutes of every node along the route, and high-speed transit trips between nodes would take no more than 20 minutes. These objectives are impractical according to some experts. there aren't enough passengers at each stop, it would be hard to operate this infrastructure economically. To support the amount of public transportation, the line would need large nodes that could handle more passengers. It's also not clear if the technology for the line's transportation system has been developed yet. 318 miles per hour is far faster than the current high-speed rail, which is needed to go 100 miles in 20 minutes. Some of China's high-speed rail trains have achieved speeds of 236 miles per hour, whereas Eurostar trains in Europe average roughly 199 miles per hour. Theoretically, Elon Musk's Hyperloop technology was now under development, might handle the travel, but even that is at least a decade away from commercialization. Prior to moving on, make sure to subscribe to this channel for more informative videos if you're interested in learning more about multi-billion-dollar building projects throughout the globe. Now, some believe that the project's innovation hides the fact that it's actually the most costly marketing gimmick ever, intended to divert attention from the world's terrible reality. The Red Sea coastline, one of Saudi Arabia's most neglected territories, is where the Neom is being built, despite the prevalent notion that it is being built on undeveloped ground. There are various settlements that formerly existed, and they are currently inhabited by 20,000 members of the Huwadi tribe, a nomadic group. The Saudi government intended to seize the land of the Huwadi people, who have been farming in this area for many generations. In April 2020, since they had no place in the plans for Neom, one of the members who refused to hand over his ancestral land was eventually killed by the police, and soon after, his death sparked a wave of criticism from human rights defenders. Very recently, it was reported that 3 more members of the tribe arrested for protesting against their forced eviction had been sentenced to death. While the forceful removal of indigenous people may seem like a huge roadblock, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Saudi Arabia's desert climate is characterized by one factor, in particular, extreme heat. To counter that, the mirrors on the outside of the skyscrapers were reflected away from the building inside the line. This could create all sorts of consequences given how enormous they would need to be. Areas where the sun is reflected off the mirrors would double, and heat and any object in the vicinity would possibly melt. Also, environmental planning experts criticize the project as they believe that the very size and length of the mirror line will disrupt the routes of migratory birds. Not just that, several wild animals will be displaced, and the dynamics of groundwater flow will be affected. Considering the line's enormous size, it would be impossible to build a 500-meter tall building out of low-carbon materials, and constructing the line would require a phenomenal quantity of steel, glass, and concrete. Despite the line being free of greenhouse gas emissions and operating on 100% renewable resources, its construction would produce more than 1.8 billion tons of carbon dioxide, which is equivalent to more than 4 years of the UK's entire emissions. This would counteract much of the proposed green initiatives. In order to build the line and see its completion, Saudi Arabia will have to overcome both internal and external challenges around financial and technical feasibility. The biggest economic challenge is that Saudi Arabia has not been able to achieve more success in attracting financial resources and investment from foreign governments and companies. The reason being many Western countries and companies boycotting the kingdom and its prince over records of human rights violations. While the initial plan was to complete Neom by 2030 with an allotted $500 billion, some reports claim that the city may not be completed until 2050, which will likely increase costs significantly. It's predicted that the entire project, including the line, will cost the kingdom $1 trillion. The project is financed by the Public Investment Fund, the Kingdom's sovereign wealth private investment fund. Except for discussions with some foreign companies, including Russian ones, Riyadh has not had success in other financial partnerships for the line. The financial viability of the Public Investment Fund is highly dependent on the kingdom's oil exports. The market has been proven volatile in recent years. In a country where around 60% of its financial resources come from oil, the financing of this mega project is likely to face ups and downs. In order to complete the project, Saudi Arabia must also overcome technological obstacles that it cannot handle alone. Following cutting-edge urban design, technologies are essential if we want to draw in investors and future city dwellers. The line would then be added to a lengthy list of unfinished cities in the Gulf. Less than 10,000 people are living in King Abdullah Economic City, a port city with a $10 billion investment. There's also the now abandoned waterfront project in Dubai, the Blue City in Oman, and maybe the most infamous Dubai project, the World Islands, which is now sinking back into the ocean despite having projected population of 2 million. The issue then becomes, is there anything Neom has to offer that may spare it from suffering the same fate? It seems premature to predict if the 100-mile-long metropolis will actually materialize because the futuristic city is still in the early stages of construction. It is a daring endeavor that raises the bar for conceptualizing what the future cities should look like. Whether it's totally feasible will only become clear with time. Share your thoughts about this mega project below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.